1 year ago, almost exactly to this very day, I uploaded my first ever long-form video. 'Twas a measly thing, out of focus and hastily shot to the best of my equally measly abilities. Watching it is an incredibly painful and yet enlightening experience. Believe it or not, I think I may have improved. I have thrifted bits and pieces of equipment as I've gone, delved into the depths of the darkest of editing arts, and certainly gotten far more comfortable talking to myself, though I'm not so sure that last one is a good thing. However, whilst so much of my process has changed, one thing undoubtedly has not. To this day, I remain very much of the bug. No matter how much time passes, my heart still yearns for the smell of fresh mud, the cool embrace of murky water, the croaks of cranky toads, and most of all, masses of magnificent moss. Lush and lustrous, brilliant bryophytes that beg to be draped over my shoulders so that I might further blend in amidst the frogs and ferns. You know what I'm doing here, yes? Oh, certainly you must. You've clicked on the video. You've seen the title. You know that the only possible way to one-up my boggy bag is... To answer this question before you type it, yes, I do intend to make a moss thing every year around this time to commemorate, and yes, I did think up a silly name for the phenomenon, and yes, thank you for asking. It's Mossiversary. Now stop asking me so many questions. That's for later. My original moss bag was painstakingly crocheted, but crocheting with eyelash yarn is not something I would wish upon my greatest enemy, so this year I'm opting to fabricate my finery with knitting instead, mainly because crocheting requires actually being able to see your stitches. Fluffy yarns tend to make that much harder to do, though they do have the added benefit of hiding mistakes. Over the past year, I've been collecting a few yarns that have big moss energy in preparation for this project. The fuzzy, mossy sorts of wool are often expensive, so I'll be popping in a core yarn in a murky green colour to add some slight variation and bulk. In the end, I settled on a combination of starting with the very expensive lighter mohair yarn at the top and the less expensive acrylic mohair combination at the bottom to form the bulk of the sweater, with the same sock weight cashmere yarn all the way through in hopes to unify everything. I'll brain up some way to blend the two colours and textures together a little later. There's no stash of wizard trash this time round either. This is all fancy brand new material. I shall not be mentioning brand names for a few reasons. For one, not all of the balls of verdant fluff I have found are available overseas. I've bought from my local makers, as I believe you should as well. The second reason, of course, is that I can't remember where some of these are from, because I bought this fancy yarn winder and promptly proceeded to wind every yarn in my collection into pretty compact cakes with no heed as to where I toss the labels. The kinds of yarn I recommend are eyelash, mohair, silk packer, felted or tweed yarns, boucle, or anything a little textured and green. If you are a knitter of any sort, what you're about to see next may be terribly upsetting for you. You see, I consider myself more of a social knitter, a knitter by necessity, someone who treats knitting as more of a slow and occasional activity, someone who knits exactly one row before feeling terribly sleepy, which is why I keep my knitting on my bedside table. In fewer words, with plainer truths, I'm rubbish. And I didn't quite realise just how rubbish I was until I started this particular ritual. But now that I'm aware of my shortfalls, I can make a good use of our returning sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is a mystical, magical, virtual learning platform absolutely chocked full of mages willing to share the arcane secrets of their spellcrafts with you and I. There are so many curious courses to choose from, and I, taking full advantage of the library, have already taken a few of the sewing, illustration, and editing sort. You may already know that I've taken Bernadette Banner's hand sewing basics course. I have since revisited it to reinforce the lessons I learned with this personal hand sewing project. But I've also been slowly making my way through Addie Singh's quite frankly massive collection of courses on video editing, colour correction, and other such oddities to improve on my videography. I particularly enjoyed Practical Tips to Make a Great Cinematic Travel Video because there was a specific focus on camera handling, something I struggle with a little more than I'd like to admit. Though it really would have benefited me to take Knitting 101 1 Everything You Need to Knit with Confidence by the marvellous Vincent Williams before I started this video. I especially found his section on reading knitting patterns rather helpful, as I've never read a knitting pattern in my entire life, simply because I didn't have the foggiest clue as to what any of the shorthand meant. Also, did you know I've been twisting my stitches? I didn't, but now I do. Should you find yourself under-equipped to handle your next adventure as well, Skillshare has ever so kindly offered a 1-month free trial to the first 500 of my council members who sign up using the link below or by scanning this QR code. So go forth and increase the wrinkles in your glorious brain tissue. This video is not in any way, shape or form a tutorial, but I shall do my best to explain here what the plan is with the help of various Right, here's the game plan. I'm going to knit the sweater flat in stockinette stitch, so the base pattern is essentially 2 squares made up of enough stitches to cover my chest with enough rows to reach my waist, which for me ended up being 88 stitches across and 100 rows down. I determined this by making a 10 stitches by 10 rows swatch of the yarns I'd be using and measuring that. Then I measured the distance shoulder to shoulder and divided that number by the swatch number and multiplied that by 10. But wizard, that's a very short sweater, you say, but you do not understand my genius. To the bottom of these, I'll be adding long, drapey, spiky bits. To make them, I'll start by adding in intentional ladders at random points around the 80 row mark, achieved by knitting until I have the spike width I'd like, popping in a stitch marker, yarning over to make an extra loop, and then knitting along as normal. When I reach 100 rows, I'll knit up to the stitch marker, pull it out, drop the next stitch and massage the ladder up to where I yarned over. This method stops the ladder from travelling too far up but still gives it a distressed viney look. Around here is where things get a little tricky. I'll be ignoring the rest of the stitches and only knitting what's on my needle, decreasing every 4 rows until I reach the very end, wherein I'll be leaving a long tail to add more movement to the end of the piece. My decreasing is very unceremonious. I knit the first stitch, knit 2 together, continue as normal till there are 3 stitches on the needle, then repeat on the other end but reversed. I don't know where to add this tidbit in, but to increase the drama of the drape, every 20 rows for the entire sweater I'll be sizing up my needles by 1. I did this on some test pieces and the resulting fabric moved so beautifully, almost floating in a dreamlike haze. This way the stitches at the top will be more dense and stiff and the floaty bottom bits will be tattered gossamer vines. For the sleeves, I'll repeat all of the same steps, only they are a shocking 140 stitches across, and I do not have the fortitude to get trapped on Sleeve Island. I shall remain shipwrecked there forever, talking to a coconut, so to make my life easier, I'm going to make them shorter. There'll be around 60 rows for the base squares, not counting the spikes because those are free form. The resulting garment should make you think I was trudging about the bog, spotted a dense sheet of moss on a rock, and then threw it over my head to form a garment. With the plan all set, it's time to strap in and knit for an entire eternity. While I'm stuck in knitting purgatory for the next little bit, I thought this would be a good spot to answer the questions you submitted for a little impromptu Spanish Inquisition. So please put your hands together for a Quizzard for the Wizard. If the wizard were a witch's familiar, what form wouldst thou take? A nice fat frog. Or toad? What is the wizard's favourite animal? Sea before. I also love bees. How old is the wizard? Either as old as the core of the mightiest mountain top, or around 28, 29? I can't remember most days. Which of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the wizard's favourite? This one. What was the first spellcraft the wizard ever conjured? For my channel, this pillow. In life, I could not tell you honestly. I have been making things for so long. The only person who might have a clue is no longer with us, and she probably would not be able to tell either. Why did the wizard start this online journey? 'Tis my hope to inspire others to make magical things with whatever they have laying about. Additionally, I have been and will always be making things, so now I just have an excuse to finish my projects. Is wizarding your only vocation? Technically not. I am also a freelance 2D animator, but I have not had a freelance job come in for quite some time, so the keep has become the full focus of my attention. Who or what inspired the wizard to start crafting? The arch wizard. She was always a master spellcrafter and encouraged both my sister and I to create in so many different ways. Every year we'd go to a magical, mystical place called Hobby Expo, and she would bid us run into the massive stalls and pick one new craft kit. I also spent a lot of time watching Mr. Maker, who or what inspired the wizard's interests in fantasy. That'd be the Archwizard again. Much of my childhood was spent going to whimsical places, reading whimsical books and watching whimsical movies, all at the behest of my mother dear's immaculate taste. Most of my fondest memories were spent at a place called the Goblin's Cove, which is sadly no longer around. They single-handedly fed into my obsession with all things magical by hiding fairies and gnomes amidst the rocks and trees along their nature path, and to this day I've never fully recovered. What is the wizard's favourite book/movie/media? This, and this. There's far more if I'm honest. Will you ever do a collaboration? In fact, I have a few lovely friends in mind that I have attempted to coordinate projects with. I'm just a bit rubbish at planning, and time zones are a hindrance. What is the wizard's dream project? With much appropriate delusion on my part, in my wildest of dreams, I'd like to build a castle in a forest with a little wizard's tower and all sorts of stupid, nonsensical magic in all the corners. Fairies, dragons, selkies, gargoyles, the lot. It'd also be a cool place to have events. Who is the best dragon? This one. What is the most surprising aspect of the wizard's first year? I found that the videos I often have the least amount of faith in tend to do better amidst the eldritch abominations that run the numbers on the internet, and I can never fathom as to why that is. I mainly find it surprising that I still haven't got the faintest idea of what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying myself nonetheless. Any projects you'd like to revisit? I want to make more silly hats. I'm thinking of calling the sequel Sillier Hats. What is the wizard's dream location to shoot? There are too many beautiful places in this world and I want to go to all of them, but I'd truly love nothing more than to shoot in marvellous places like Edinburgh and Prague, in castles and old stone pubs and inns and museums. I've been tossing about the idea of starting a second channel to put up some tiny travel vlogs for all the marvellous local places and fantasy events I visit on rare occasions, just to document them in a visual diary format so I might look back fondly on them all. I may do that for Medieval Fair this year. We shall have to see if I actually do. What is the wizard's favourite of the projects published so far? This bloody crown. It took very long, but it was well worth it. I am a sucker for the shimmer of glass beads, and every time the light catches this infernal thing, I sob with joy. Where does the wizard reside? At the bottom of the world. Ice cream or cake? Ice cream. Specifically the honey macadamia from a local gelato spot, though I do love a good Magnum Death by chocolate. Will the wizard ever delve into the realm of cooking or baking videos? I would like to. I have this book on medieval cooking and I'd like to try a few recipes. I am planning to do a medievally Christmas this year, and it might be fun to bring the council along. Does the wizard enjoy science fiction as well? Yes, my most favourite pieces of sci-fi media are mainly these three, but I also have the unhealthiest obsession with Neon Genesis Evangelion. What are the wizard's favourite crafting snacks? Popcorn! Homemade on a stovetop, of course, with just a sprinkle of salt. Which crafts or techniques would the wizard like to learn? I have become a man obsessed with the concept of woodworking. I've never done it a day in my life, but I have it in my head I could make something grand if I just got my hands on some of the tools. Other than that, stained glass, pottery, and chainmail. What are the must-have tools for any crafter? I'll start by saying that I don't believe you need specific speciality tools to do most things, but I'll admit that life without a sharp pair of scissors, an X-Acto, cold glue, and beeswax for thread would be a little harder for me. Any more plans for historical crafts? I'm in the process of designing a few things that may be of interest in this regard. Additionally, I have more plans for art thievery episodes, so if you've been enjoying my poorly researched historical adjacent rants, you're in luck. How does the wizard keep up the medieval tone in speaking and writing? The trick is to just speak a little fancier in a mildly continental accent and throw a couple tizzes, twazzes, ye olds and huzzahs in there. More like the way the people in the mid-2000s thought fantasy characters would seem more magical if they sounded vaguely British. As for keeping up the shtick, well, I've always enjoyed being a little whimsical and silly, so other than some mildly more flowery language in a much fancier tone, this is just sort of me. That's all the time we have left for this segment. Now for something completely the same. I've decided I hate knitting. Or at at least I hate knitting anything larger than a pair of socks with a deadline looming ominously over me. My wrists ache and I'm so sick of stockinette stitch, and the repetition for days on end has left me feeling incredibly tense. So if I ever tell you I want to do something like this again, take me by the shoulders and shake me until whatever foul evil that has possessed my brain has been thrown loose. But now it's time for a few finishing touches. The chaotic energy of this final stage means that a few of the steps I took are in a strange order. First, I sew the back and front together at the shoulders and leave enough room for my head to go through, making sure it is large enough that none of the dreaded fuzzy will touch my skin and provoke me into a sensory-induced rage. This straight line needs to go, so I attempt to blend them out with a few duplicate stitches, but this yarn is fuzzy and I can't see the stitches to duplicate them. So I switch over to my good friend, French knots. Or English knots if you're in France, according to this council member. I know the knitters are going to have me drawn and quartered, but I really adore these mossy French knot clusters. Then I switch back to sewing the sleeves closed at the sides with a fancy mattress stitch that hides all the seams, only to whip stitch the sleeves into their sockets in the ugliest and most visible seam you've ever had the displeasure of laying your eyes upon. To bring it all home, I add in more clusters of moss knots, brush the yarn a little with my wool carder to make it more fluffy, and give it a good steam with my very old iron in an attempt to block it. Then I grab my mossy make, my sibling, my camera, and the dregs of my sanity and run off to our local park. For how much I despise the process of conjuring this thing, I do adore it. I will admit that if I had had the time and patience, I would have liked to make the sleeves a little longer, but I'm just not a patient enough conjurer for that, and it still looks very good layered over things. I love motion in a garment, and these long, mossy, hanging vine bits really satisfy in that regard. Now that this exists, I can't help but wonder what moss thing I'll be making next year. Will you still be at the keep to see what it may be? While those things may be uncertain, there is one thing of which I am not, and that is that I will not be knitting it. I have had the grandest time during this journey. When I first uploaded, I started with a couple shorts just to sort of figure out editing and stuff, but it was always a goal to make long-form content that's a little sustainable and thrifty while still being magical and hopefully entertaining. I started and I thought, this is a bit niche, not sure who's gonna watch this, but for those that do, it'll be right up their alley and those will be my people then. And as it turns out, that's a lot more folks than I thought it would be. There's a few of you who've been around since the very start, and I want you to know I appreciate you so very much. I'd also like to thank my Wizard Council over on Patreon. They support the channel in such a big way and enable me to keep creating increasingly more ridiculous content, even in these dark times. I'm really and truly so grateful for them all. You're so lovely, the lot of you. Thank you for everything you do. And thank you all for supporting and continuing to support my channel. It's a silly little make-believe corner of the internet and I'm very proud of it. I'm very chuffed to have you all, thank you. This project sucked the life out of me and I don't know why, so I'm going to take 2 days off, but I'll be right back. Thank you for celebrating my first year with me.